There's a bird somewhere right now, completely still on their perch, watching you. Not moving, not making a sound, just staring, steady, unblinking, as if they're waiting for something to happen. You've seen it. You know the moment. Maybe it made you a little uncomfortable. Maybe you laughed and looked away. Maybe you stared back and wondered what was going on behind those eyes. Most people assume a bird that stares is just being curious, or bored, or a little strange in the endearing way birds sometimes are. But what's actually happening in that moment is one of the most complex social behaviors in the entire avian behavioral repertoire. And once you understand it, you'll never look at your bird the same way again. There's something specific that a long, sustained stare during complete silence means. Something different from every other kind of gaze your bird gives you. We'll get to that. And when we do, it'll reframe something you've probably been misreading for as long as you've had your bird. 1. Staring is not a passive behavior. Most people watch their bird lock eyes with them and think something passive is happening. The bird is just sitting there after all. Nothing dramatic, nothing alarming. Just a small creature looking at you from across the room. But here's where the science gets uncomfortable. Research from the Max Planck Institute for Ornithology has shown that the gaze behavior of parrots is far more cognitively demanding than it appears. When a parrot tracks a specific individual with sustained visual attention, they're not spacing out. They're actively processing, monitoring facial expression, body posture, micro movements, emotional valence. Their brain is working at a level most people never attribute to a bird. Parrots have a visual field of nearly 300 degrees. They can see almost everything around them without moving their head, which means when your bird turns their head to look at you directly, when they choose to narrow their massive peripheral world down to your face, that is a deliberate act of focused social attention. They're not staring blankly, they're reading you, and they've probably gotten very good at it. Think about that for a second. What have they learned about you from watching? 2. Your bird stares because you are their primary source of safety information. In the wild, parrots are prey animals. They survive by reading their flock constantly, monitoring posture, movement, and the emotional state of the birds around them for early warning signals. If one flock member tenses, the whole flock responds. Awareness is survival. Your bird does the same thing in your home, except you're not another parrot. You're an enormous, bipedal mammal whose emotional states are communicated in a language your bird was never evolved to understand. And yet, they try. A 2019 study from the University of Vienna confirmed that domesticated parrots show strong sensitivity to human emotional states, including the ability to distinguish between calm, stressed, and angry facial expressions with statistically significant accuracy. They couldn't explain this in words, but they could identify it in your body, in your face, in the way you carry yourself when you walk in the door. That stare? Your bird is gathering data. They are trying to determine, is my person okay? Is the environment safe? Is today a good day or a dangerous one? Here's what nobody tells you. When your bird stares at you from across the room, they're not waiting for you to entertain them. They're checking if you're all right. And if you want to keep going deeper on this, if you're already seeing your bird differently, hit like and subscribe. This is exactly the kind of thing we go into every single week. Now back to what that stare is actually telling you. 3. The direction of the stare tells you something different than the stare itself. Not every stare means the same thing. And this is the part most owners miss completely. A bird that stares at you with their body oriented toward you, leaning slightly in your direction, feathers relaxed, one foot possibly raised, is expressing something fundamentally different from a bird that stares at you with their body angled away, feathers sleeked tight, tail still. Dr. Susan Friedman at Utah State University has long emphasized that bird behavior can only be accurately read in full context. Behavior plus posture plus environment together. The gaze is the headline. The body is the full story. Forward body plus relaxed feathers plus sustained eye contact is a bonding gaze. That bird is engaging with you, seeking connection, In parrot social dynamics, this is the equivalent of a flock member choosing to sit close to you and stay. It is an act of affiliation. It is, in the most precise scientific sense of the word, affection. Tight body plus sleeked feathers plus tracking gaze is something different. That bird is monitoring you the way a prey animal monitors something that might move suddenly. They're not afraid of you, but they're alerting. Something about the environment or about your current state has activated their surveillance mode. You've probably seen both. You just didn't know they were different messages. 4. Some stares are a form of request. I find this one personally remarkable, and I think you will too. Parrots are among the few non-human animals that appear to use directed gaze as a communicative tool. Intentionally looking at a person, then shifting their gaze to an object or location, then back to the person. This is called gaze alternation, and it's a behavior that developmental psychologists track closely in human infants as a marker of social cognition. In a study published in Animal Cognition, researchers documented that African gray parrots use directed gaze and gaze alternation to direct human attention toward desired objects, food, toys, perches, in a way that was goal-oriented, not accidental. Your bird staring at the food dish and then at you isn't a coincidence. They're pointing with their eyes. They've learned that your eyes follow their eyes, and they're using that knowledge deliberately. But here's the part that goes even deeper. Parrots also appear to use gaze to initiate social interaction, not for resources, but for contact, for connection. A bird that stares at you from across the room and then waits, without vocalizing, is sometimes not asking for anything except your attention. They want you to look back and to stay. 5. Prolonged staring can also signal overstimulation, and most owners respond to it in exactly the wrong way. Here's something that might surprise you. That locked, intense gaze your bird gives you right before things go sideways, right before they bite, right before they scream, right before they start pacing. That gaze is not aggression building. It is sensory overload signaling. Dr. Irene Pepperberg's decades of work with gray parrots documented a consistent pre-escalation pattern. Birds that were approaching their stimulation threshold would often become very still, very visually focused, and show reduced vocalization before the behavioral outburst that owners interpreted as coming out of nowhere. It didn't come out of nowhere. That silent stare was the announcement. What most owners do in that moment is keep engaging, talking, reaching in, trying to redirect with interaction. Every additional input is fuel. What the bird is actually communicating with that locked gaze is, I am at capacity. I need this to stop. The correct response to this specific stare is to stop. Withdraw slowly. Give your bird space. Let them recalibrate. That silence they showed you wasn't a problem. It was a request. They weren't acting out. They were asking for quiet. 6. Now, about that specific stare, the one that's different from all of them. This is what was planted at the start, and it's worth taking a moment with. There is a particular kind of gaze your bird will give you, and only you, that has no equivalent in how they look at anything else in their environment. Not at food, not at toys, not at a window, not at another bird. It happens most often during quiet moments, when the house is still, when you're not doing anything especially interesting. You're reading or sitting or working, and you look up and your bird is already watching you. Not alerting, not requesting, just watching with an expression that, if you're being honest with yourself, feels almost contemplative. Researchers studying pair bonding behavior in wild parrots have documented that mated birds spend significant time engaged in this kind of mutual visual attention, what behavioral ecologists call affiliative gazing. It serves no immediate functional purpose. It doesn't communicate a need. It doesn't transfer information about food or predators. What it does over time is reinforce the bond. It says, you are my flock. You are what I return to. You are safe. Your bird has extended this behavior, evolved for a mate in the wild, to you. When they sit in complete silence and watch you with their whole body relaxed, they are not bored. They are not confused. They are doing the thing that in their species means, "This is who I belong with." And most owners look away without knowing what just passed between them. Tell me in the comments, what does your bird's stare look like? Does it come with sound or silence? I read every one. And if you want to understand the next layer, the video after this one covers what your bird is doing while you sleep, what they hear, what they track, and what it tells you about how deeply safe or unsafe they feel in your home. You won't want to miss it. You've looked at your bird hundreds of times, but today, for the first time, you know when they're looking back at you and what it means.